Hello, this is Christina Barr, and you're watching Black Tea News. Hello, welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about this viral video that came about like a couple days ago, and it was really short. It's a thing at a pride parade. I mean, you got a lot of talk about it because people were chanting, "We're here, we're queer, we're coming for your kids," and Elon Musk retweeted and stuff, and so it made the rounds on Twitter. But I just hadn't mentioned it because a lot of weird stuff happens. I mean, is it as bad as like a choir coming together and actually making a song saying we're coming for your kids? No, but they're both bad. But to take the time to compose something versus a couple of people, and it wasn't even like it was a ton of people, but it was a couple of people chanting that line. However, NBC, a strange turn of events, they decided to report about it, and they're like, well, people are taking it out of context, and the thinking and the response was kind of like, we always say stuff like this, and it's like so that's a little odd. So we're going to talk about that today, though. The truth be told, people are always coming for the kids, because you need to shape kids into your different ideologies, really. So it's not really a surprise. I guess it's kind of a bit of a dirty secret a bit. So we'll talk about that as well. Also, there is a Democrat legislator from Rhode Island that got caught keying a car, and he tried to use like his status and to get out of it. But there's video, whatever. But so it's really unfortunate that our elected officials are also deranged, like a lot of activists are deranged. And it doesn't really bode well, I think, for our republic. So we'll be talking about that. And also, Reuters, for whatever reason, decided to do a special report on our elected officials and Supreme Court justices and governors and stuff to track their history to see who has descended from slaves. And I heard about this yesterday, or maybe it was the day before yesterday. A friend of mine did a TikTok about it, because Trump is the only living president, only living ex-president, or I guess president as well, because they included Joe, but who did not descend from slaves. And Trump has decided to comment on it, which I'm not surprised that he has commented on it. And I thought it was funny when I heard it, because I'm like, Trump is the kind of person who will use their tactics or whatever against them, so he definitely pointed out that he's the only one. not that bears any sort of responsibility on you living today with people that you never knew, decided to do. You're not responsible for their actions. But if you're a Democrat and you believe in reparations and stuff, I guess you do believe in that a bit. So he had a funny comment. So we're going to talk about that and some other things as well. So before we jump into it, first of all, I want to thank you guys for viewing, for being in the chat, for those of you who watch it back later. And so, just appreciate you guys. And thank you to those who joined me last night for my interview with my friend Ronquel. And she told her story about how she had an abortion when she was around like 17 weeks pregnant or so. And she had a really traumatic experience explaining it. And so I appreciate her being willing to come on and tell her story and to share. And to the people who watched it, there was a couple of women in the chat who said that they had an abortion and they can never forgive themselves. And that just really breaks my heart when people say things like that. I don't talk about these subjects because I want women to suffer forever for those actions that they took. But I thought Quell had such good compassionate answers for women who also went through what she went through. So if you can take the time, it's the last live I did. It's available on YouTube, so you guys can go ahead and watch that interview. And I thank you guys for joining me. You guys can go to the website blacktnews.com, check out different articles that I've written, and check out other videos that I have. I wrote a post today on my Facebook, and I did share it on YouTube as well, explaining the Roe decision, because there's a lot of people, and I'll just try to get through this as quickly as possible. There's a lot of people who have it in their head that Roe v. Wade, just allows abortion up until the point of viability, and that's what it is. So Joe Biden won't. They keep asking him about his limitations, and he keeps saying that Roe got it right, or I agree with Roe, or we need to codify Roe. And so I think people have it in their mind that he's saying like, oh well, women should be able to have this right until a baby is viable. But the truth is that Roe v. Wade just allows abortion up until basically any point. It says that the states can legislate for the first trimester. You can't have restrictions, and then the second trimester you could have restrictions, but in the interest of protecting the woman, right? So they viewed it as a right to privacy. And so it's which is it's so bizarre to me that you have a right to privacy to have an abortion, but they didn't think you had a right to privacy to not get vaccinated or something. But whatever. But they still didn't view the baby as a life. It was just a potential life. So when it reaches the third trimester, they're like, okay, well now you can have restrictions. You still have to consider the mother's life and stuff, but you can have restrictions on abortion for the interest of the child, but you don't have to. You don't have to. So what Roe v. Wade was, it prevented states from protecting the unborn. So that's what it did. So when people say I support Roe, that doesn't mean that they're telling you any information on what week there should be a limitation at. So they could still have a very radical opinion. They just don't think that you know enough about it to challenge them. So that's the route that the White House is going, that Biden is going. I would like to see people press him more on it. But I think his position now, even though he's a Catholic, good Catholic or whatever he tries to say, but I think his position is the same one that Stacey Abrams took, and Beto O'Rourke took, and that my governor has, and that my congresswoman has, and I think all my Michigan, you top of the ticket has with the Secretary of State, and like they believe in no limitations. They don't like to say that because obviously this sounds barbaric, but that's the route that people are going. I'm not really surprised. And at the beginning of my book, of course, Guys Blatantly Against Abortion, I talk about the political atmosphere about a bit. And I think there's really only two consistent positions. We can try to compromise or whatever. I don't think a lot of things that people mention actually make sense when you think about it. But when you begin your life as an individual, like who's come into existence at fertilization, like that's one point where you could say, well, that's where your rights should exist, and we should start protecting you from violence. Or you could say, the other consistent position is you're outside of the womb, and that's the position of the mother's bodily autonomy supersedes everything, and whatever you make it out the womb, fine, you're alive, etc. So one of those positions, I mean, I guess both people will view them as extreme, and which I don't agree with, but they're two opposite ends of the spectrum. And so to me, they're the only ones that logically kind of follow through. So that's why they're running to the other end. So I know there's people who feel very complex emotions about it and want some kind of sweet spot in the middle, but that's just kind of like the truth about the tug and the pull and the push right now. So if you want a conversation with your legislators and people around you on this issue, just like have them nail it down and defend their position. Don't let The Roe v. Wade thing, that again, that does not specify a particular restriction, and it prevents states like the Dobbs decision. It came to the Supreme Court because there was a 15-week ban in place, and it got challenged because the 15-week ban couldn't stay in place. Like a state deciding to protect the unborn at 15 weeks, it couldn't stay in place as long as Roe v. Wade existed. So if you think that, and most 72% of Americans think that 15 weeks is a good spot, that's a comfortable majority. So if you are somewhere around there, you can't possibly think that Roe v. Wade is a good decision. So I wrote a post about that today. People said it was very helpful how it broke it down. So you guys can go check that out. Maybe I'll go ahead and include that in an article as well. So yeah, just want to let you know that that was there. You guys can also check out different merchandise at my website as well. I will show, like, I mentioned this yesterday. I wanted to give to Dana Nessel, my attorney general. She was going off about Hamtramck, which is has an all Muslim city council and a Muslim mayor, and she was mad because they wanted to only fly like the United States flag and the state flag and stuff, and she was mad because they wouldn't fly pride flag. So I got this mug that says "You are not that special." So got in the T-shirt. And 4th of July is coming up, so we got this cool, like, of course, the Constitution is a Glorious Liberty document available. And I will also show you my book that I mentioned. Of course, God is Blatantly Against Abortion, which is available on Amazon and Barnes and Nobles. And I'll say this really quickly before moving on, because someone under the post on YouTube said that the problem with the pro-life movement, and they said it shouldn't be so polarizing politically, but they thought that one of the reasons why it was so politically polarizing is because so many Christians are pro-life and it's viewed as like a pro-life position. And respectfully, I just I think that's a cop out. Because and I mentioned like secular pro-life, that's a group run by atheists. Now I think the pro-life movement is like, it's a huge chunk of it is religious people. Sure, that's true, but not everybody is religious. And secular pro-life will just use logic and science and critical thinking. They're very respectful. They very much concisely and critically think about the other people's arguments and try to represent them well. Like, a lot of people will get into abortion debates and they will not be respectful or even try to understand what the other person is saying, and people talk past each other. They don't do that. They're so good at what they do. I really recommend following them if you don't. But they're accused all the time of being Christians and secret Christians or using religious arguments, and they don't. So people bring up religion to kind of like just undercut what you're saying. So I mean, I would try to stay away from religious arguments at first, and then people would still just accuse me of being religious, and I can't say I'm an atheist because I'm not. So I just found it best to explain not the spirituality of my convictions, but the philosophy of my convictions, which I think a lot of people actually agree with when you break it down. So I think that's the route to go. And then just say, I believe everyone has inherent value. Why don't you tell me why you don't? Like, I believe because of that inherent value that, and I don't think we can just kind of trust humans to pick and choose indiscriminately when someone has a right to life and when they should be disqualified from rights. Why don't you tell me why you think that they should? And we can go from there. You don't have to say it makes baby Jesus cry. Like, that's a nonsensical argument, right? I mean, if you're Christian, I guess it's fine, but you wouldn't say that anyway. But my point is, like, there's other layers to it, and people need to just know how to explain why they believe what they believe, period. So but I think it also doesn't make sense because there's so many Democrats who are Christian. Most Black people are Democrats. They are. And it doesn't really matter what's going on. They would uniformly just vote the same way. And it doesn't matter how often they go to church. Like, Black people are more likely to go to church consistently than any other group, but they're a solid voting block for Democrats. Now, white evangelicals, the more they go to church, the more likely they are to vote Republican. So the more religious they are, the more likely they are to vote conservative values. Now, I think a lot of Black people, especially ones who go to church and are religious, are conservative, but they just don't know it. because that's the same thing happened to my family. They were voting Democrat until there was an awakening, like, oh my gosh, we're actually conservative. you know so I think most people with religious convictions tend to be. But so saying that religion is what's keeping the pro-life, pro-choice argument from being something that's bipartisan, I don't think that's true. And we could talk about it more on another day, but that's not my what my episode is about. But I just thought it was an interesting comment that I wrote a long reply to, so I will dive deeper into that at a different time. But I want to get to the stories of the day. But lastly, I'll say that if you want to support, you guys can go to blackteennews.com and donate there, cost stream on my website, all the good stuff. And I am also monetized on YouTube, so you guys can do super chats and other things like that. So anyway, I want to start with this Trump thing because I think it's pretty funny. um, so Trump Reuters did a report for some reason. And I'm not going to say it's not interesting. I don't think it's terribly relevant to anything really. But they said among America's political elite, Reuters found that 5 living presidents, 2 Supreme Court justices, 11 governors, and 100 legislators descend from the ancestors who enslaved Black people. Now, if I'm being frank, I think that number's a little low. Those numbers are probably low. There's got like legislators, there's got to be well, maybe they're just talking about, I don't know, it just seems like it's probably maybe more, maybe not. But the 5 living presidents, Trump is not one of them. So he's like the only one that doesn't have a legacy of like slavery within his ancestry. Like even Obama, within, because Obama is mixed. They say this first Black president, but he is a he's mixed, he's biracial. So Trump, I had this graphic ready to go, for some reason it glitched, so let me just share my screen for a second. Now I have this tweet pulled up, and I saw this and I laughed. I thought it was so funny because I just could imagine him writing something like this, replying to something like this. President Joe Biden and every living president except Donald Trump are the direct descendants of slaveholders Jimmy Carter, George W. Bush, Bill Clinton, and through his white mother's side, Barack Obama. Reuters, I hope that every African American in our country is reading this right now. Remember, in all caps. Now, does this have any bearing on your state of morality today? What you choose to do? Should you be held accountable for what your great whoever did? No, absolutely not. Now, there's a lot of people who, I don't know, don't seem to share that sentiment and think that this is America's original sin, and that people today need to continuously keep paying for it. And even in the cases of Black people who have that ancestry or as well. I mean, I have ancestors in my history who were enslaved, but also slave masters and stuff as well. So actually, there's a story, at least it's been passed down, of a family of a slave master's daughter who ran away with one of her father's slaves. And so then her family found her like later, because they wouldn't give her inheritance or whatever, and then they wanted to make her leave her children. And she's like, y'all wouldn't even like tell a dog to leave their pups, like you guys are cruel. So and they sailed up, they ended up relocating in Metropolis. And so which I think is cool because I'm a big freaking nerd. So anyway, so much history is like intertwined to this. And so, and it's not just a thing that happened in the US, it happened all over the place. There's still slavery going on today. So the sort of I mean, I can't say it is like fascinating, find history fascinating. I wrote a historical fiction fantasy series actually, that takes place, during the Civil War era. So my main character is a runaway slave. So with like X-Men powers. So, it's a really cool story. You guys should read it on Amazon. So it's called The Color of God's Eyes. I mentioned it, so I'm just gonna show an ad really quick. I'll get back to the story. It's one of my favorites that I have written. It's usually the one that when people ask what to read of mine, it's what I recommend. So anyway, that's the book. It's available on Amazon. You guys can check it out. If you go to blacktnews.com, go to the merchandise page, there is a banner that'll take you to my book website, but you can just search my name on Amazon. You'll find it very easily. So and thank you guys for those of you who've checked it out and read it and liked it and reviewed it. So God bless you. So, but it's not something that you can hold anyone morally accountable for what their ancestors did. Now, a lot of people don't seem to really, again, feel that way, and they want people to pay and they want reparations. And I'm like, how would you even disperse that? Or what about the people who have nothing to do with that and came over later sometime and they don't have some kind of ancestry that goes back that deep in the United States? Like, you want recent like white immigrants to have to pay through their taxes to African Americans who probably have ancestors who also own slaves as well. So there's just so many things that don't really make a lot of sense about it, how they want to implement it. So Trump understands their kind of rhetoric on the left and the guilt by association. So he's playing into that, and he's like, I'm the only one. I need one of those really good Trump impersonators to just go on a rant about this, because it's funny to me. Like, again, I don't really think it means anything. He's not going to get another vote. There's people think he's racist and can't even explain why. Like, have you guys seen like any of those men on the street videos where they read a list of like racist sayings and like who said it, Biden or Trump? And then they're like, oh, Trump said. They're like, nah, Biden is the one who said, you can't go into a 7-Eleven without a slight Indian accent. And they'll list other things. And after like 3 or 4, they're like, are all these Bidens? I saw one video where they're like, Trump is racist. And they're like, well, why do you say that? And they're like, he's denounced white supremacy several, like 11 different times. And they're like, I have video. I'm like, well, I don't want to see it. They're like, why don't you want to see it? You made a claim. You can't prove it. Don't you want to? And they're like, leave me alone. And they just kind of run off or whatever. So, this isn't going to help him get any votes. I just think it's funny. But just side note, don't make people accountable for things that they're not guilty for, but that's not the way of the world. So he's just playing, to their game. So I thought it was funny. I thought it was really funny. I got a good humor chuckle out of it. Anyway, speaking of chuckle, it's funny what people think that they can get away with. And several times you see sometimes a legislator get into some kind of trouble and they'll be like, oh, well, I'm a state legislator. They're, and as if the cops are just going to let them off. Now, I don't doubt that there's probably times where you get off with, using your power in place, but didn't work this time. So awkward moment. This is the Daily Mail reporting. Awkward moment. Police arrest Democratic state senator accused of keying a car because it had a Biden sucks bumper sticker. Name drops police chief in an attempt to get out of the charges. So here is this short little montage snippet of it right here.
Well, I heard a loud scratching noise, and as I turned the corner, there he was with keys in his hand facing the vehicle.
He was blocking my way, saying I scratched his car. I didn't scratch his car. I'm a state senator. I think he recognized me. I think he's one of the gun nuts.
I don't even know any of the senators, to be honest.
Why would you key his car?
Listen. He was threatening me already.
There's a video.
Okay, he was threatening me already.
So, so Joshua Miller, he's a state legislator from Rhode Island, and he's like, oh, they just said that because I'm a state legislator. And I thought it was funny, the video, he's like, I don't even actually really know my legislators. And I think that's true for probably most people in states. We pay so much attention to federal politics because we find them more interesting or whatever, but it is local politics that really impacts you day to day to day to day. But a lot of people don't know who their, representatives are and haven't talked to them, haven't seen them in person, haven't gone to any like, county commissioner meetings or anything like that. And I mean, I have gone to those things. I'm involved in local politics, but I do find federal politics kind of more fascinating, I guess. But I guess if you kind of evolve and elevate to that kind of national standing, there is something like, I don't know, usually something interesting about you. You're charismatic or whatever. You're on TV a lot. You go to different places. You're I don't know, making a name for yourself during Senate hearings or whatever. But a lot of times you need to be paying attention to the person who's like, trying to raise the taxes on your local property taxes. I mean, those are things that you really need to pay attention to. But a lot of people have no idea who their state legislators are. So I believe the kid when he said he probably didn't recognize him. But I think it's so deranged that people would destroy your property, key your car, not because you had a man or something and he dipped out on you or something and you went to go get revenge, like something personal. Like, you shouldn't do that either, but that's far more understandable than a random person having a bumper sticker on their car that says Biden sucks. Now, how can anyone be that offended about a bumper sticker that says Biden sucks? How can that be so wildly offensive? Like, if you had some kind of anti, like, LGBT sticker, or you had some kind, and I'm not obviously not advocating for anything like that, but it just seems like saying that Biden sucks is so less offensive and closer to the truth, to just like a baseline level thing that people would kind of accept and believe. It's just not worthy of someone getting so angry that they key a person's car. Now, if you think, well, this person could be a Trump supporter and that's why I have to do, that's still not right, and that's still deranged. But there could be all kinds of people who think Biden sucks. Do you know how many times you can go on TikTok or whatever and there's a live and they're like, Biden's not good, but he's better than Trump, which I wouldn't say that, and a lot of people wouldn't say that. I don't think most people probably watching right now wouldn't say that. But there's people on the left who don't like Biden, didn't want to vote for him when they voted for him, and they'll defend him over Trump or whatever, but they don't like him. There's so many polls that have come out and stuff. They're concerned about him and his policy, how old he is, that he's not all there. They find it embarrassing how he just kind of keeps falling over the place. His vice president, they like him more than his vice president. Kamala Harris is like polling like the lowest vice president that they have on record and stuff. I can't remember what poll it was, but oh my gosh. But they don't like him, but they still prefer him over Trump, right? So, but that doesn't mean that they like him. So getting so offended that you go and ruin someone's property because they have a Biden sucks sticker is just beyond crazy to me. Just beyond crazy to me. So I don't get it. Especially being an elected official and how it could blow back on you. And this obviously did blow back on him, and he tried to pretend like it didn't happen. And there was video of it. So I'm glad he's being held accountable, and no name dropping was able to get him out of that. But people just need to take a breather and realize that you may go out of your way to vote for someone. You may go to their rallies. You may, have a bumper sticker on your car, or log in some hours calling for these people. But they are, one, just still people. And two, a lot of them don't really care about you either. Not a lot. They're still just, they're people ruin relationships over politics. Like, their friends and family won't invite them to dinner, won't, just totally X people out of their lives. I have a family member who basically like unfriended and blocked like all of my quite a bit of my family because they don't like Trump, so they just blocked a bunch of us. And why I don't know why it has to be that deep, or they have to feel it has to be that deep. But at the end of the day, you're still gonna have your family around, or maybe you won't, or you still have family and friends or whatever, and these people are not gonna they're president for 4 years, maybe 8 years if they get reelected, you know? Um it doesn't make sense to put so much stock into these people, these strangers. So I don't get it. I don't get it why you would risk so much. Um Even, and I don't understand someone making you that angry over to the point where you would do that. It's not like he's, such a great president that he's just doing so much to inspire such loyalty to become that angry. Um, but I'm glad he got busted. I'm glad he got busted, but it's scary that there's people so deranged just out there in general, and that people elect them. I went to one event, and this was like, I don't remember if it was a midterm or, I think it was after 2020. I think it was like right after the 2020 election, maybe. And but it seemed like if it was right after the 2020 election, maybe it wasn't after the 20, because it was a public event, and I'm trying to think, would it have been closed down? Maybe it was before. I think it was before. It must have been before the 2020 election. But I went to an event, and there was quite a few cars where people went around and just let the air out of the tires because it was some kind of Republican event. Now, they didn't get my car, but there's been events, where people have gone and they've keyed cars and other stuff like that. I know a lot of people who have their stuff keyed. If you put like a Trump bumper sticker or something on your car, that is a decision, you know. 'Cause you'll probably get harassed for having that, and your car might suffer some kind of damage or whatever from these deranged people. And it's just so not that deep. It's just so not, even like honking at folks. You may want to get to a debate. Mike Winger said, he's a great apologist. He has a YouTube channel, and you guys can check him out. But he said that he had a bumper sticker that said "former fetus" on his car, and he got some people were so mad at that. It just said "former fetus." Aren't we all? Like, that's just a fact. So what makes you so angry? And so he did a really good video, because someone left him a letter. Someone left him a letter saying, like, all the reasons why a woman, well, not all the reasons, but they had three big reasons to why a woman might want to get an abortion, and listing like different circumstances or whatever, and the brought up like the quality of the life that the child could have, and stuff. And so he just went through the letter, and he just talked about how he would have met the requirements for reasons to have an abortion if they were going from her list. So it's a really good video if you guys want to check it out later. It's about an hour long, I think, but he talked about the letter of his life, and if you're interested in his teaching and of scripture and other stuff like that, and you don't know much about him, it's a really interesting backstory on his life. So people get so mad about these bumper stickers. Like, having maybe a conversation, striking up a conversation is one thing, but keying their cars. Anyway, let's move on. So and I see people in the chat having conversations with each other, so appreciate. It's like, my sister's comment, like, oh, it's kind of like there's a little community within your comments, and people, chit chatting with each other, see you guys answering each other's questions. So just want to say, I see you. I don't always want to break my line of conversation and thoughts and stuff, but again, thank you guys for watching live, because that does help to also draw other people in as well. Okay, so another interesting thing that happened. So I mentioned that there was a clip going around of a pride rally where people are chanting, "We're coming for your we're here, we're queer, we're coming for your children." So that was going around a lot. So a lot of people on the right were sharing it, a lot of people were talking about it. Elon Musk shared it, and stuff. So um NBC decided to do an article about this. And so now we have another reason to talk about this, I guess. So um so their article says, "We're coming for your children," chant at NYC drag march elicits outrage, but activists say it's taken out of context. So over the weekend, a short video circulated widely on social media of an unidentified person at a New York City march during the Pride festivities saying, "We're coming for your children." And I think that was more than one person. And obviously that video is like egregious, people saying that or whatever. I guess I didn't really. There's so many other things to kind of talk about. I just kind of didn't get to it anyway. But it wasn't like there's so many crazy things popping up on the internet about this stuff, this time of month and whatnot. I don't know. That didn't make my top 10, I guess. And it wasn't like a march of like thousands of people saying it. So I guess that's why this didn't make my top of the pile, I guess. But NBC had like a strange sort of take, I guess. In the 21-second clip circulated by right-wing web streamer channel, dozens of people march in the streets and are clearly heard chanting, "We're here, we're queer, we're coming for your children." But one voice that is louder than the crowd is not clear whose or whether the speaker was a member of the LGBTQ community is heard saying at least twice, "We're here, we're queer, we're coming for your children." Oh, so they're just trying to say that it wasn't a LGBT person. Okay. Okay. To conservative pundits, activists, and lawmakers, the video confirmed the allegations they've levied in recent years. The LGBTQ community is grooming children. But to Brian Griffin, the original organizer, I don't know what word that was, of the NYC drag march, if that's the worst they heard, it's only because he wasn't there this year. So their whole argument is activists are like, we're way worse than that. So, but I guess we know that because, as I said, there's so much bad stuff or weird stuff that this didn't make the top of the pile, and they're kind of like, yeah, that's true. Like it's no big deal. It's no big deal, which is true because I think like at least I think it was 2 years ago there was a Washington Post opinion piece. Washington Post saying that kink is good at festivals and it's important that children see it. And we read that article at the time when that came out. It's probably behind a paywall now, but we did read it together at the time when it came out. And a lot of weird stuff in this world, guys. So anyway, Griffin said he chanted obscene things in the past, like "kill, kill, kill. We're coming to kill the mayor." So this is the organizer who's saying in the past he chanted to kill the mayor. Okay, and joked about public hair and sex toys during marches. People at the drag march regularly saying God is a lesbian. "It's all just words," Griffin said. "It's all presented to fulfill their worst stereotypes of us." The "coming for your children" chant has been used for years at pride events, according to longtime march attendees and gay rights activists who said it's one of the many provocative expressions used to regain control of slurs against LGBTQ people. And in this case, they said right-wing activists are jumping on a single video to weaponize an out-of-context remark to further stigmatize the queer community. Conservative politicians and pundits have increasingly referred to advocates for LGBTQ rights as groomers, associating people who oppose laws that restrict drag performances or classroom discussions of gender identity with pedophiles. The change is an echo of a decades old trope anti-gay activists have used to paint the community as a threat to the country's youth, an allegation that some advocates say endangers LGBTQ people, and the intense reaction to the video has scared some attendees who insist the quip has been taken out of context. Um, it's not taken out of context. The question is, do you mean it or not? So they're saying some of these people, not the people who said it, but some of these people are saying it's just words. We just say stuff to be provocative, to fulfill those worst sort of instincts that people have or whatever. Now, people who say groomers, they're not just talking about the association of kitty touchers. I don't want to keep saying the word. I don't know if he'll get flagged or whatever, or downvoted or so. I don't know, but they're also talking about grooming into an ideology as well, not just straight to the sexual stuff, but people do find it strange and suspicious when you have adult entertainers. That's what drag queens are. They are adult entertainers reading to kids at libraries or putting on performances and whatnot. And some of them do not tailor their performances. Maybe they do to some degree, but they still have raunchy performances with the kids and stuff there. And they don't see it as a big deal. There's a clip of Tim Cast. He has a show in the morning called The Culture War, and he brought on Emma something. She's with I think Sam Cedar's show and stuff. And so they were talking about parental rights and other things like that. And she said that she didn't think it was a big deal about this book is gay. She's like, well, are you for censorship or not? He's like, something should be censored. Something should be censored from kids. And she says she read this book is gay and that she says it's a good book. And there's nothing, I guess, doesn't see anything wrong with it being in schools. There's literally a portion in the book that talks about kids going on apps to meet gay people. And the book is for like 13 to 17 years old. I think that's like the age range for it, and it has like explicit sexual material in it. So I would definitely think it's weird that if you got that for your kid, but definitely not having like school libraries and stuff like that. It's like obviously you can still go buy it on Amazon if that's what you really want, but the idea that people are just not only okay with that, but fighting like tooth and nail, like people were in Dearborn in Michigan were protesting that book, and there are people from the LGBT community came out who said who took such offense to it. And it's like, why are you so offended that they want this graphic sexually explicit book out of the schools? Why are you taking that so personal? Why can't you just have the approach of, yeah, just leave the kids alone? Like why are you taking this as a personal attack? It's so strange. It's so weird. So when you fight so hard to keep having this perverted stuff within the schools and around kids, it makes people raise their eyebrows and say, what is it about you? Why do you want this? Why do you want this? So it's weird, guys, and not all LGBT or even LGBT, LGB, or not even all the TP, all these folks, not all of them are like, oh yeah, let's bring this in and let everybody watch. Not everybody's for that, even within the community. Let me go on. It's really scary to us, said Fussy Lomain, a drag performer and activist who was at this year's march and declined to give their real name because of safety concerns. It doesn't represent everybody. It represents that individual. I thought it was a dumb idea and started chanting on top of it with alternate verses. The video elicited outrage from right-wing pundits who called the marches demonic and evil. GOP members of Congress tweeted that it showed legislation to outlaw gender-affirming care is warranted, and the Florida Republican Party claimed that is what the Florida Dems want in Florida. Probably is, but the organization for this year's drag march, known as Huckleberry Ken, who has performed performs in drag as Sister Sister Lottie Da, declined an interview request, similarly citing fears for his safety in light of backlash over the video clip. But he said in an email that the coming of your children chant was a bad joke that is being used to serve the interests of parasitic, predatory political propaganda and policy. We won't tolerate harm towards any child and advocate for the protection and encouragement of every child to be able to love their true, authentic lives free from fear and persecution, Huckleberry Ken said. Yeah, but what if this like idea of the children being free is to really embrace their sexuality at an unusual age, like that people are kind of like, let people figure this out on their own, don't introduce too many things to these kids because you are influencing them. And these drag performers, they are adult entertainers, and what they're into is that beyond the drag stuff, like the raunchy stuff they do. What they do is essentially like blackface, but instead of mocking black people, they're mocking women. So you can be okay with crude humor, but would you go to a minstrel show today if white people were mocking black people, or do you just do that when men are making a mockery of women? And dressing in drag isn't the same as a drag queen. Like, people are trying to conflate the two, but the reason why people would do dress in drag for humor is because men make ridiculous women, and drag performers, I guess, kind of know that to agree, but they're mocking femininity. That's why they use feminine language with themselves, etc. You know, Medea isn't the same as uh trying to think of the name of the person who was in all the Disney stuff now, who's in Blue's Clues. I can't think of his name, the drag performer. But it's not the same thing. It's not the same thing. The NYC Drag March, which starts in East Village neighborhood of Manhattan and ends at the Stonewall Inn in the West Village, is a similar and more provocative demonstration that is separate from the larger televised NYC Pride Parade that took place Sunday. And another thing, in the video, they were chanting that, but there were people walking around topless with little like things on their nipples. Like, that's not appropriate. That's not appropriate to just kind of like, we're gonna march topless around in NYC, you know. So there's other things going on that's just not appropriate besides the chanting. I just wanted to throw that out there. Griffin, an activist who performs as Harmony Moore, organized the first NYC drag march in 1994 in response to organizers of the Stonewall 25 demonstration, who asked people not to show up in drag or leather to make their event more palatable to certain communities. The drag march is intended to push against the notion that LGBTQ community needs to assimilate into heterosexual standards and is less serious than other pride events. I don't know, there's a lot of pride stuff that's pretty kinky and weird and stuff, but as I said, there was an article in the Washington Post not too long ago that said, I mean, it was a year or two ago, whatever, but that said kink is important. It's important for kids to see kink because that is expression of what those people like to do, and they're just expressing their true selves, and consent is all that matters. So as long as people agree to be themselves, expressing themselves outwardly, then that should be upheld and loved and respected, and it's important that your kids, you know, are okay with that, and etc. So this is all so weird. And Griffin goes on to say it's fun, it's about the performance, and whatnot. So there's a little bit left of the article, but I just thought it was an interesting take from NBC. They're just kind of like, no, they've always said weird stuff. And by the way, coming for your children, there are way worse things that they've said and way worse things that they've done. And I think that's true for sure. Certainly there's one video, and I won't show this to you guys, and I didn't retweet it. But there was a man in his underwear, a big guy who was just twerking in his underwear at a pride event, and all he was dressed in was like his they weren't even boxers, but his underwear, and there were kids behind him, and he's like just twerking. And then someone in the comments was like, how is this any different than going to a beach? And I'm like, well, if I was at a beach, or let's say something kind of close proximity, like if I was a pool area and there were some people like twerking, um, I would think that was inappropriate. If I had kids there, I would give them a piece of my mind personally. There was a YouTube on TikTok where there's a black girl who was like, kind of twerking a little bit or whatever, being obnoxious in a um hot tub kind of spa area, and some white people got up, and so she posted videos like, oh, these people are racist, that's why they don't want to be near me. And so many people are like, no, you seem obnoxious. You seem really obnoxious. Like, I don't blame them for leaving. Not everything's about race. Maybe you just weren't home trained. um so I don't know. I think that there are definitely people who go out and twerk at the beach or something. But when you go to the beach, I guess you expect people to kind of be in beach attire. You don't expect people to be twerking in their grown men twerking in front of kids in their underwear. That's very you should go to jailish if you ask. I don't know, you ask me. And there's videos of men riding around naked on bicycles. um I there's people, a lot of people who I follow, who are gay online, and they're just like, I don't want to identify with this community anymore. Like, I'm not part of it, whatever. They're like, I don't want to be associated with that and pride and all this stuff, because there's a lot of perverse, weird stuff that people promote and push, and that they're uncomfortable with, and they think that people should have the space to figure themselves out, and you shouldn't force it on kids, and it but there are people who feel like they need to be able to do these things, and the freedom to be able to do them in front of your kids, because that's a way of them feeling validated. And to be honest, so much of our world sexualization, not just from like the LGBT perspective, just in general, um to normalize sexual behavior, they do go to the children. Like, even so much, last night I talked to my friend Ronquel, who had an abortion in high school, and when she was around 17 weeks pregnant. So she told her story, and it was pretty horrific what she went through, but she just talked about how normal it was. And she was told by other girls, around her age, maybe a little older and stuff, that they went before the court and they were able to have an abortion without their parents knowing. You just go for the court, you tell them why you need to do it or whatever, and because you're not supposed to be able to do without parental consent, but there's ways around it, and they just kind of acted like it wasn't a big deal. They sleep around, with different folks, and sex is normal to them, and so is abortion. So they just created this culture where that was just the thing. Now they put that in her head. She did eventually tell her mom, and her mom, gave her 2 cents, and I think encourage is a strong word or whatever, but she was like, this is your decision, or and she ended up having an abortion that she regrets, and didn't and she had what I would say was post-traumatic stress from it up until, like, I don't know, last year at least, or maybe she's just kind of getting over it this year. And so I asked her kind of what happened, and so she just, I don't know, kind of said it was the grace of God, or that may perhaps she's had, because when she had her procedure, it was a 2-day procedure. The medication didn't really knock her out like it was supposed to, and she could feel them everything that they did to her. She could feel it didn't knock her out, and she like passed out crying on the table. And she could, if anyone had a conversation about giving birth or abortion or anything, she would still feel like kind of the remnants of that pain and stuff. So that's why I said she probably had post-traumatic stress. At least that's what it sounded like to me. I'm like, not a doctor, but what a heck of a thing to feel and go through. But that was just like her normal. And so I asked her, like, what do you think we need to do to kind of change the tide on this? And so she talked about, like, change educating in the schools, and try and encourage people to be celibate and other things like that. And I'm like, the schools don't want to do that. No. And I said, when they don't allow you to talk about abortion, not negatively or positively, that's just a conversation you can't have. But like sex education nowadays is so much about normalizing sex, not people not having sex. And some of our philosophies and thinking on sex education are rooted and connected to people like Arthur Kinsey, who was a sexologist who got a lot of data from criminals and perverts in prison and stuff. But one notable graphic or table that he had of information that he collected that was in one of his books was data collected from a government employee. He was like, I think he was surveying land or something, so he traveled a lot, but he would keep a chart of children that he would touch, and he would write down their reactions and stuff. And so Kinsey kind of was like, oh, kids feel pleasure and whatnot. So people coming for your kids to normalize their sexual proclivities, that's not a thing that is exclusive to people marching in the streets saying we're coming for your children at pride events. I've talked about this before, but my dad and my mom, there were certain things that aren't bad or anything, but when we were kids growing up, like there was a certain age they didn't want us, to get our ears pierced until a certain age, or us to wear makeup till a certain age, or to wear fingernail polish to a certain age. And I don't think those things are bad. Like, I painted my niece's nails the other day. Her mom, does that. So I said I wasn't very good at it. I don't do it that often for myself. And then I painted her nails, and I don't think I was doing a great job. She has little fingers. And she said, I think you're really good at it. I think you're good. And so she started telling everybody that I was good at it, which was nice because she plays games with me. She really does. I'll be like, give me a hug. And she's like, no. Like, so we had a nice little time on a Sunday. She's very nice to me. So I'm not saying that those things are bad, but the reason why my parents had certain standards for when they wanted us to be allowed to do things and date, etc., is because they were trying to protect our innocence and they didn't want us to grow up too fast. And I don't know how much of that was my dad's influence or my mom's influence or who kind of pushed those boundaries. But I guess I can get offline with you guys and go ask them. But if I had to guess, I would think that was mostly pushed by my dad because he had 6 girls, 1 boy, and he grew up with there were 6 girls in his family and there were 2 boys. And there were just some issues, we'll say. There were some issues. I don't want to get into it all with you guys, but at least not today right now. But he was definitely trying to protect our innocence and make sure that we weren't, again, growing up too fast. So I think we kind of need to rein in a lot of stuff, but so many people were so conditioned in a particular way. Like I told my friend, it doesn't make any sense that people will say that they're too young to be parents, but they're not too young to go out and consistently sleep around. And people have the attitude of they're going to do it anyway, so let's just give them the condoms, etc. Like she said something about abstinence. I'm like, you're gonna trigger somebody. and I was kind of joking. Like people have literally told me it's impossible to be celibate, and I'm just listening to them say that it totally virginized and stuff. I'm like, it's literally impossible. Like it's literally, because I'm kind of doing it right now, but okay. But it's so far removed from people's minds that they just can't imagine it. So we just live in a world where we keep making it normal as early as possible. The dresses aren't cute and frilly, and we dress our children as like little adult people, and it's just weird. So I think we all kind of need to take a step back, but I don't know if we will. Last thing I want to show you guys before I go is that there was a a little Aleppo moment from a man who's running for president on the Republican side, but the well, I'll just show you the snippet here, but
will you be talking about the Uyghurs in your campaign?
What, the what?
The Uyghurs.
What's a Uyghur?
Okay, we'll come back to that. You won't be. You got to get smart on that.
So Francis there, who is running, I suppose, to people assume to be kind of the foil to Ron DeSantis, I guess, but to slow him down, or I don't know, make his numbers not get up where they need to be, or I don't know. People run for all kinds of different reasons: for fame, for money, for notoriety, for to get position in other places. Sometimes, I guess, to derail some people sometimes. But that's not good. But I heard that he was, I can't remember the name of the tech mogul, but there was a report that he's being bankrolled by this tech moguls that people don't care about what's going on in China with the Muslims in camps and stuff. So it was a pretty messed up thing to say, though. So interesting that the candidate that they're backing doesn't even know what it is. But it's a big yikes moment. It's a big yikes moment for sure. There's a lot of people getting in this race who don't have a snowball's chance, who are just wasting time. And if people don't want Trump to be president, this isn't the way. Trump already like has it in the bag in some state. Like, he's so far ahead of everybody. He's so far ahead. That doesn't mean that things won't rapidly change. Things can certainly shift. There's a lot of undecideds on the table. But the more people who jump in and start like pulling 1% here, 5% there, whatever, Trump's just going to come in with a plurality, because that's what happened in 2016. So, but we'll talk about that more another day. I wanted to talk about Trump's recording again, because he's been asked about it. We talked about how CNN released it and Trump replied to it, and so he had some interesting comments about it. I kind of think he should stop talking. But from his perspective, and we'll have to go more in length tomorrow, but it kind of sounds like he's painting the story of like he's just kind of braggadocious with this stuff. Like, that's not news to anyone. But he's saying he didn't literally have documents there. Like in the he told Brett that he had newspaper clippings. If you listen to the recording, it doesn't sound like it's newspapers, but he said he had a lot of stuff on his desk. So he could have stuff that he had printed out and newspaper clippings, and he could have been like talking about it and stuff because he sees stuff reported in the news and he discusses it and brings it up or whatever. So, and they can't find the document. Now, he's not being charged for this alleged document anyway, so it doesn't do much for his case. It just kind of makes him look bad. So, the context is important, I guess, to talk about, but one thing is public opinion, and it's important because he's running for president, but these are serious charges, and I don't want him to talk himself into a bad position. So I don't know, we'll have to work this out and talk about it tomorrow, because I'm a little over and I start a little late, so I'm gonna call it done there, and we'll touch on it tomorrow. But anyway, thank you guys for joining me and watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the content, enjoyed the show. Please go to blacktnews.com, check out different articles, videos, etc. Also want to give a shout out to my super chat. Former fetus need that on a t-shirt. Maybe I'll have to put that up. Thank you very much for the super chat. Very much appreciate it. If anyone else would like to support Black Teen News, you guys can go to blackteennews.com/donate. Cost to stream, cost to run my website, all that good stuff. And there's some other like equipment stuff that I like to get. And I hope you guys are enjoying the new microphone that I got. So I'm gonna start recording some audiobooks and stuff, by the way, soon. So I'm excited about that. I'm just trying to figure out which order I guess I want to go in. I guess the easiest project would be to start with my book Slay Your Fear and go from there. But I definitely there's things I want to narrate. I think at most things I want to try to narrate myself, but there's some of my fiction books that have accents that I think it would be weird if they didn't have accents. I know some people are like, if you can't do an accent, just don't do it. And I'm like, well, people expect it. I'm like, I definitely can't attempt this. I used to think I had a really good British accent, but then I started listening to more British people talk, and I'm like, I would never ever guess that you would say that word that way. like like garage or something. I'm like, garage. Or like, what the heck? So I'm like, how am I supposed to guess that? So um some things like even some like American accents or whatever, like a southern accent, like I don't think I'm gonna do that particularly well. So I'm probably not gonna narrate The Color of God's Eyes, maybe, unless everything just doesn't have an accent. And I don't know, I'll have to think about that, but there's other things that I can do in the meantime. For those of you who don't know, I have 17 books that are out. Two of them are nonfiction. One of them is my abortion book, available on Barnes and Noble and Amazon. The rest of my books are just available on Amazon. The other book, nonfiction, that I have is my book Slay Your Fear: How to Overcome a Spirit of Fear. So that's a faith book. So that's available as well. So and I had started recording it, but this mic is obviously better, so I'm gonna redo it. And then I have children's books like my book Super Kid and Super Kid 2. These are children's chapter books. Thank you to the people out there who've gotten it. And I did mention my book earlier, my series Color of God's Eyes, which is these two books here. And I don't have the rest of the photos for the rest of my book. So here's a photo with me holding 15 of them. So if you go to blacktnews.com, go to merchandise page, there's a banner at the top that'll take you to my book website, ninjadustpublishing.com, and you guys can find out more information there. Or if you just go to Amazon, you can find my Amazon page. I know some of you follow me on like Amazon, so I thank you for that. I thank you for people checking out my stuff. But yeah, that's gonna be like my next big adventure. Yeah, I have 17 books. Thank you very much. 17 books that published. I have over 30 that I've completed though and written. And one book I have is a picture book, and my sister Tina is working on the artwork. My sister Tina actually did the illustration, not the illustration, but the cover for I do all my own covers with the exception of this one. I did design it, but my youngest sister did the artwork for The Hand of God Reaching Out to the Baby. She did such a wonderful job, but she's illustrating a book that I wrote right now. So hopefully, I don't want pressure or whatever, but I'd like to get that out sometime this year. And if other novels that I'm working on that I want to have out this year as well. But the audiobooks, I know people have been asking for them. I'm just have to get that done, but also and I have to think about where I want it up, because I know Amazon, if you have it posted multiple places, their royalties percentage is really low. And I don't know. So I'm thinking about, but I know so many people like audiobooks. I like audiobooks as well, because I drive a lot, travel a lot, and I know a lot of people, like people who drive trucks and stuff, has asked like, hey, do you have audiobooks? And so I want to go that route, and I know that's a huge market as well. So we'll get there. We'll get there for sure. For sure. Anyway, if you guys do want to support again, you can go to the website. And if you want to look at any kind of merch that we have at the store, that's available to you. And I will catch you guys tomorrow.